thing goes red, you click this.
If I ever get out of this house alive, gonna set the whole goddamn place on fire.
Oh, I fucking was like talking shit and didn't even have my mic unmuted yet. Right? I was all like, "Did you see that fucking smooth ass transition?" Yeah, no, sure did.
And our tech wizard, Fluff.
Yeah, that's oh god. We're waiting on that. Smooth as a rumble strip, baby.
Hell yeah.
I like that one.
So, we did just get I just got a message from Cole. He should be here any time. He is going to be here tonight. We're not just throwing it out there like, hey, fucking, we got guests. We don't. So.
Cheers, Galaxy. Well, in the meantime, let's get ourselves prepared for an evening discussion, and
I just did that. If we can get a frog to go with that, it'd be awesome.
Oh.
I feel like my eyes are bulging out of my head like a chameleon right now. May have took that one a little bit hot.
I just got a message from him on Instagram. Says PC's updating.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sound familiar to anybody?
Yeah.
Let him know that I've been playing that game for the last 2 hours. So I feel his pain. Holy fuck me, man.
Yeah, right.
And it always happens, like, just as you're trying to go live or right about to do a show. Usually we come into these and, we're all chilled out. Maybe we did a dab or smoked a joint together pre-show. Fucking bullshit a little bit. And, on with it. But then you get these days where your computer's like, nah, motherfucker, I'm going to decide today. And as I fired my computer up about exactly 2 hours ago, and it is still trying to load StreamYard right now. Like, I got in there for a bit with Fluff, no camera or anything like that, and then I hit the camera on button that we think it was on the F8 or the F6 button with the picture of the camera on it. Problem is, I'm 43 years old. It's not very bright in this room, and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, so I couldn't see. So I had to dust the keyboard off. But you know how it is. I'll just be like, hit like everything on that top row, and I somehow shut down my StreamYard.
Right? You yeeted yourself right out. Like you said, "Oh, I gotta dust this keyboard." Next thing you know, you just straight disappeared. I laughed my ass off.
No.
Hey,
what is up, guys? How's it going?
What's going on, bud?
Not much at all. Just technical difficulties. Sounds like we were all on the same page with regard to
you
that.
fit right in.
Yeah, it's like a 4-year ongoing thing with us.
Hell yeah.
You would think the more we do this, the better we would get, but I really think it's going the opposite way.
Hey, isn't that how old the show is?
I was gonna say I'm right there with you. I think that's how it would go, but
Oh, so how's Cole been, man?
good. And I'm actually just making this go live on my channel too, which is super cool that we can do this.
Well, right? Is it like easy?
Yeah. I'm literally typing a description right now. I am live on Cariboo TV. Want to make sure Yeah, super easy. I think like we are live now. I think on my channels.
Sweet.
Yeah. So
Look at that. See, you're fucking way better at this shit than we are.
I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate. I'll take the compliment.
You want a job then? Pay sucks. I'll tell you that. But
I mean, he's close enough. I can pay him in a lot of weed.
Oh hey.
Yeah, I mean, so I've got to make it up there one of these times to fucking go hang out with him. So what better time than to deliver him a bunch of good stuff?
Yeah, I got to make it down too. Whereabouts are you? You're in Southern Illinois, right?
Oh yeah, I'm damn near in St. Louis.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm on that side.
I'll definitely have to let you know when I'm back down there.
I did see my wife actually caught it the other day. No, I got it on my Instagram. The Luna Lounge was doing that big thing on 420 with Afro Man.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. I didn't see it. That's cool.
Yeah, that popped across their thing, and I was just like, man, that sounds like we're trying to figure out what we might want to do for the old 420 Easter.
Yeah.
So
that might be one, maybe.
Right?
Hell yeah. Well, hey, I just want to say thank you all for bringing me back on the show. It's been a while. I think it's been 9 months.
It's been a hot minute, and yeah, man, you're a fun interview and just a great hangout. So yeah, welcome back. We'd love to have you back even more.
And there's a lot of shit going on here in Illinois to talk about. So you know, I just try to kind of stay updated on your page, honestly, to get my info. So, but other than that, man, I mean, and with that, I'll just start this whole thing by like, just thank you for all you do with the activism in Illinois, getting it out there for people and letting everybody kind of know what's going on, because literally zero clue about like, what is it, SB 42?
Yeah, SB 42. Yep, I had to check my notes real quick, but yep.
But so it sounds like you know, it just came through last night that we got that passed through the Senate. It needs to go to the House.
Yes, it was actually sometime this week. Yeah, Senate Bill 42 passed the Senate. Like you said, it still has to go to the House. Once it gets through the House, so just a quick technical detail, it's got to go through a House committee, which I say that because when a bill goes through a House committee, this is one of the rare instances in Illinois politics when somebody like yourself or myself can actually directly participate in the process. And that's what I did last time when it went through the Senate committee. So it's gone through a Senate committee. It went through the Senate. Now it has to go through a House committee and then through the House. And then it can be signed into law by the governor.
Oh, man. Gotta love Illinois politics.
Yeah.
So now is this the same one? Have they kind of like wrapped the two together with the smell of burnt cannabis and now the smell of raw cannabis? Are they now wrapped together in one bill?
Yep. From what I understand, they are wrapped together. It's the idea that Senator Ventura, who crafted this legislation, came up with is just that the odor of cannabis in and of itself, whether burnt or unburnt, or as you said, whether burnt or raw, in and of itself alone should not constitute a reason to search a vehicle. And one of the things that gets lost a lot in this conversation is it's not only that law enforcement can search your vehicle, but like legitimately, guys. And I actually tried to make this point last time. It was going to be heard in a House committee, but unfortunately they canceled it. So I basically made a wasted trip to Springfield. On my way to the Capitol, I stopped by a dispensary and I said, "Hey, bud tender, give me your smelliest package of weed." And they did. They did a great fucking job. So shout out to, I think it's like the only, I'm not going to name them, but it's like the only Springfield dispensary in Springfield. I think there's one. I could be wrong, so whatever. But anyways, they gave me a package of weed that smelled pretty bad. So bad that multiple people in the room said, "Cole, is that you?" I said, "Yeah, that's me."
Yes.
I brought this here today because law enforcement, police brought a container of cannabis last time, and they were like, "Well, nobody can smell it in the room, right? Nobody can smell it in the room." And it's like, I don't know where you got that cannabis. And but anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, other than, you know, I brought cannabis to a hearing room. It stunk up the whole courtroom.
The fact of that
Oh,
they can get you on.
yes, I remember what
Yeah.
I was saying. So a lot of people focus on the fact that they can search your vehicle, and they can, and that sucks, right? Because in America, I know we've got Canadian friends here, but in America, we're supposed to have rights. I'm not saying that you don't have rights in Canada either, but you know, you have the protection against search and seizure. You can plead the fifth, things like that. And so people focus on the fact that the odor of cannabis allows people to basically violate your Fourth Amendment right, which is true. It is unfortunate. But I think the lead that's being buried is that, just as that scenario I drew out, like if I would have been pulled over on the way to the Capitol, not only could they search my vehicle, but they would have charged me with a Class A misdemeanor. Like that's, I think, the big, not only, yeah, can they search your vehicle? That sucks, right? That's never a fun experience to be stuck on the side of the road, law enforcement going through your car. But you can literally be charged with a Class A misdemeanor, which if you know, for our Canadian friends, at least in Illinois, a Class A misdemeanor is what you get when you get charged with like domestic battery. This is just for having cannabis in your car,
In a legal
not even
state now.
using it,
Yeah, that's a bit much. Like,
right?
so I got pulled over a couple of years ago speeding, and yes, I absolutely was. They smelt weed in the car, and they started asking the question, "When was the last time you smoked weed?" and stuff like that. And I lied and gave him a lot more hours than it actually was, right? And he gets out and just basically gets me to walk a straight line for him. He just wants me to show that, yeah, I know I'm not completely fucking blitzed and high. And then here's your fucking speeding ticket, and along the way you go, as long as you don't give them any extra reasons to kind of, you know, stuff you're talking about, man, to be like lumped in with fucking woman beaters and shit like that. Like that's
I
Right.
thought it was neat that you brought it up about that you bringing the really stinky weed in there, because that was the other thing that I noticed when I saw that the bill got passed through. Was it was kind of written in that they were also getting away with the odor proof packaging for everybody else, because right, we have realized, you know, I was gonna laugh if you made this comparison, because it's like, right, like when they talk about odor proof cannabis like packaging, like if any one of these have ever stepped anywhere near a dispensary, you will know that there's no such thing as odor-proof packaging, because it's all supposed to be an odor-proof packaging, and every dispensary smells like raw cannabis. No matter how many stoners are standing in there, you don't smell them. You smell the fucking dispensary.
Well
So
said. Well said. Yeah, that's actually something I brought up in my testimony, which is I just asked, you know, has anybody in this room been to a dispensary? And when you're giving testimony, you can't really like get their answers. But I just asked that question kind of rhetorically. And the reason I asked that, to your point, is because when you go to a dispensary, it smells like weed. And, you know, I don't know how things work in Canada, and things work differently even in different states. But the way that things work in Illinois is that all cannabis packaging comes pre-packaged. And I say that because when I went to dispensaries, like when I first got my medical card, you know, before legalization, before 2020, I always thought in my mind, like when I'm buying this eighth, there's people in the back like filling it up, but that's not how it works. It comes all pre-packaged, which means that the reason you smell cannabis is because the cannabis is not in odor-proof packaging, which means that the moment you get in your car, you're out of compliance with the law, which is just nuts.
And then, I don't believe that they consider a mason jar or something child-proof container, which was my kind of go-to transport for a medical patient who grows my own, so I don't have to rely on theirs, which historically has not been great. My odor proof is very odor proof, but it's not child proof.
Right.
So now we have this catch 22. Uh, and then most of the time they like to look, especially if I'm going somewhere, I'm usually carrying a fair amount with me. I'm a medical patient who uses it quite heavily for a lot of things. So I carry quite a bit with me. When you get pulled over, you see a guy with a few mason jars in the back. They don't just get you on, having a little weed in your car anymore. Now they're trying to get you on intent and possible distribution and shit like that, right? They're going to try to throw the book at you now. But that's my packaging, right? That's my odor proof. That's how I'm trying to keep it there. So.
It sounds like the best thing you could do is basically get an odor-proof purse-sized bag and then throw your canning jars into that and be like,
Right. Well, and this, you bring up a good point, because it's like, so odor-proof to who? And this is something that came up. Thanks, Genetic Memory Farms. This is a good person right there. The person you just displayed a comment of. We'll have to remind me to talk about the mini doc, because that's something I released between the last time we chatted. But back to your point about the odor-proof container, it's the question of odor-proof to who or to what, because law enforcement brought up in the hearing that I was in, they said we have canines, and canines have 10,000 to 100,000 times the sense of smell as a human. And I was like, thanks, I'm going to write that down. Again, it's okay. So odor-proof to a human, what's odor-proof to a dog? Like, does that technology even exist? And if it did, would law enforcement even use canines anymore?
Yeah, right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, the reason they use canines, and I've always been told, like, try as much as you want, but a canine is gonna smell it. I've heard of the cartel, like, packaging their weed with coffee and wiping, the sides of the packaging with oil to try to, like, throw the dog off. Dog fucking gets it. The dog gets it.
Yeah, the right breed, the right everything, they just pull right through the bullshit. They say, you want to find this, and they go, okay, we can find that.
Yeah.
They're working on almost a molecular level, right? So if it was there once before, they know about it.
Literally. And so to that point, there are some people that don't smoke in their car, but maybe they smoke in their garage because they've got kids. And then their car's in their garage, right? Or they wear a jacket. They wear, your garage is kind of cold, so you wear a jacket. What is the dog hitting on, to your point, if it's operating on a molecular level?
Right. And I mean, to that point, if you go into some of like the underfunded or the low income housing and things, even if they are a medical patient, they're not allowed to smoke in their housing. So that may be the only place they even have to go be able to medicate for themselves without getting thrown out of their place that they live. So what happens then?
You guys live in Illinois, Chicago, the Windy City. I imagine it gets cold as hell there in the winter. I know what winter gets like up here, and I would go hide in my car to medicate before I'm going to stand out there in freezing cold winds, and so. But don't need to start the car to get to medicate. You just want to get out of the wind.
Right. Yeah, and I hear about people doing that too. Like you say, just kind of want to get a break from the wind. They're not even starting their car. They don't even have the keys on them. They just get in the back seat, smoke in the car. Well, all of a sudden your car smells like cannabis. And somebody commented, I saw somebody say, all Weed Nerd DWC said all plastics breathe. And to that point, one of the questions that came up in the Senate hearing was, is there even such a thing, kind of what we were talking about, as an odor-proof container? Like, is there Can you point me to one? Because I'll go buy one so that I can avoid the trouble. And their answer, I just grabbed a candle. They said, it was a weird answer, but they said, when you blow out when you put a top on a candle, it blows it out, right? And we know this. Have you ever done this experiment when you got a candle lit and you put the top on the candle and, and it comes out? And the analogy they gave is that eventually smoke will seep from that lid. And I mean, they didn't say this, but from what I gathered, they said, no, there's no such thing as an odor-proof container.
Right. I mean, when you think about some of the compounds, especially in the plant that we're growing, a lot of them have like a high limonene, right? Which is known to just be highly corrosive. You could even say. But breaks down plastic. That's what you use to break down a lot of your petroleum products, right? When you have weird petroleum product that's like gluey stuff or plasticky stuff, what do you get? A little lemon oil, right? Break that shit down. That's the same thing, So you're putting your cannabis in a packaging that it's going to break down over time, so it will become permeable, whether it didn't start that way or not.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know. This is something that a lawyer asked me, like, who is this law protecting? Because again, I don't want to reiterate, some people have, especially law enforcement, but even critics of this bill that aren't in law enforcement will say, well, a cop should be, if they smell that it reeks of weed, or if they smell that it reeks of alcohol, maybe they should be able to further that traffic stop. So I guess I agree with that idea. Like, if there's a lot of other things going on, maybe they were driving erratically, whatever. I don't know. I'm not one to side with the police by any means, but I guess what I'm trying to say is this bill still doesn't prevent you from using the smell of cannabis with what they call the totality of circumstances. Right? So if somebody's being fucking crazy, they're waving a gun out their window and it smells like okay, the totality of circumstances says, like, well, they were doing some crazy shit and it also smells like cannabis, so we're going to search the vehicle. And that won't change going forward. And so I did want to say that, because I even saw a senator who said something to the effect of, like, well, why would we prevent law enforcement from being able to use the smell of cannabis to continue a traffic stop? We're not. We're saying cannabis alone. If you're just pulling somebody over and there's nothing wrong, they're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't be able to just say, and this kind of goes back to the point that I think I originally started with. Lawyers have told me people have been pulled over. They had just been to the dispensary, and a law enforcement officer says, I smell cannabis. And you go, oh, yeah, maybe it's because I just went to the dispensary. And not only do they search your car, but again, you get charged with a Class A misdemeanor. And it's like, bro, I did not do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. And so those are the cases that shouldn't happen, where it's like, you're kind of being honest. You're kind of like, oh, yeah, shit, my bad. There is
I think the key is definitely to further a stop. If you're speeding, right, and that motherfucker smells weed, is there a reason for him to say, other than fucking speeding, is there a reason for him to say that weed was a problem that he smells? No, then he needs to let you go. But if you were speeding and swerving and driving erratically, he walks up, you're smelling like weed. Now he has just ground to say, all right, it smells like weed in here. You were driving erratically. I mean, that would be the same as like a DUI stop.
And by the way, from what I understand, again, just from my conversations with lawyers, the same thing applies to alcohol. Like, I just went a couple weeks ago to a bar, and I was getting some food. And when I was there, the person grabbed my credit card and they went boom, and they knocked a beer off the table and it spilled all down their jacket. So that night they drove home and they probably reeked of alcohol. Now, were they drinking? I can't answer that question, but I didn't see them drinking. But just because they smelled like alcohol, that doesn't mean anything. And again, from what the legal professionals I've talked to, you can't use the smell of alcohol alone to toss somebody's vehicle. We're just trying to make some parity with alcohol and cannabis. I mean, cannabis is very aromatic, as all of us on the call know. I mean, have you guys ever, you have like an eighth? I don't know about you, but I remember like the first time I ever brought like an eighth home and everybody in the house smelled it. It's like, damn, I didn't realize it smelled that bad. Like I didn't realize it was permeating into all rooms.
No, and you thought you were slick when you brought it in the house
Right,
too, because
right.
you
Like,
thought you were getting away with something, and some mom and dad are like, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
actually what I didn't say is mom and dad. It usually is that. Yeah, they're like, what the fuck did you bring home? Oh, I thought I was good. I thought I double bagged it. You know? Nope.
Yeah, if we've been there, that's a fun one. No, there was an interesting question. Jay Patrick asked, does having a medical license do anything to help you in Illinois? And yes, I mean, once it's kind of your saving grace after they've already kind of like tossed you and screwed you up, and these problems. You get to say I'm a medical patient. Possibly beforehand, they may not go as far with somebody reading a medical card, but it's not been a guarantee that I've seen, and from people I've talked to yet. I've still seen medical patients getting more than harassed, just like anybody else. What are your experiences, Cole?
Well, fortunately, I don't have any with getting in trouble, but to your point, though, I think you hit it pretty well on the head. I've not heard of a medical card necessarily being like a saving grace, unfortunately. Now I don't know which, but I'll just plug this really quick. I think I can share my screen. I wrote this article on colememo.com. I don't know. I've got my screen shared, but I think there you go. It's titled Illinois Senate Advances Bill to Curb Cannabis-Based Traffic Stops. House Consideration up next. This is kind of what we've just been talking about. And the whole reason I'm bringing this up is because one of these two cases, right here at the top of the article, there's been 2 Supreme Court cases. You can read about it, or you can listen to legal professionals discuss it on my show. So there's 4 links here, one about each ruling, or one per each ruling. You can either read or listen to each ruling. And one of them, I think it was Molina, but I could be wrong. The person had a medical card, and it really didn't help them. It didn't hurt them either, but back to your question, it's not like it was like, oh, well, he's a medical patient, let's let him go. It was brought up though that, and this is a good point, I guess, to make. This odor-proof language, I could be wrong, but and this is why I'm recommending people to check out not only what I've written about it, but where I actually have legal professionals on it, on my show to discuss it. This odor-proof language was created in 2020 when we legalized weed. In other words, we created this crime. Between 2016 and 2020, cannabis was decriminalized, and for all intents and purposes, you could have had a joint in your front pocket or in your ear, right? You ever put the joint behind your ear? And it would have just been a ticketable offense. Like, get out of here. But now that it's legal, it's a fucking Class A misdemeanor, which is like, I would say, a measurable increase.
Yeah.
And now you are treated as a criminal. And we're going to toss your car, too, by the way.
Yeah, I remember in the earlier days, and far even before legalization, when you would get towards like the U of I campus and things like that, they've basically decrimmed that a long time ago. It was kind of toss it and forget about it, be on your way. I think it was even a ticket for, just like a small fine for the longest time in that area, wasn't it?
Yeah, Urbana was one of the first. I don't want people to quote me on this, but it was an early mover in terms of decriminalization. And like you said, that's where the University of Illinois is. And I'll share my screen one more time. I produced an entire series. It's called Hash Wednesday. So have you guys heard of Hash Bash in Michigan? You can see here if you go to colmemo.com/UIUC, I'll type that out, UIUC for University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. I've got, it looks like 6 episodes with students that were actually present during these protests. And I've even published a free to view photo archive. A lot of this stuff is like nowhere else to be found on the internet. So this is some like vintage Illinois history. You can see some former students actually getting arrested on the quad. They were just straight up smoking weed in 1988, just right on the quad.
I'm glad you saved up some of those articles, because that's one of those, like, when you talk about kind of the forefront of people in Illinois that were pushing for cannabis kind of came from mid-state Illinois. It didn't come from the northern part. You know, they did that, but the real movement came from the heart down here, you know?
Yeah. And you can see I'm displaying some images. These are students just smoking on the quad. And this was like back in the freaking 70s and 80s. And there was a camera there. I don't know about you, but I just became comfortable with like kind of smoking and talking about weed because of legalization. These motherfuckers were doing it, I mean, way back in the day. You can see this footage looks super old, and they're just chilling on the quad, hitting bongs, you know, having a good old time.
A lot of times too that you'd have you know, some older guys in power at the time, be it principal or the dean, whatever it is, and they'll like to like make examples back in the day. So to be on camera openly doing that, yeah, you're really proving a point. Like,
yeah, they're just showing they don't give a fuck.
Right? Little mini Woodstock on that front lawn.
Literally. And so what was cool was like, so I interviewed this student right here, and I interviewed this student right here. And you know, people can watch those interviews again at colmemo.com/UIUC, and they saw all this progress go down. I interviewed this student, and actually what I hear is tomorrow, Ash Wednesday, is happening on the University of Illinois quad.
Are they actually bringing it this year?
They did it last year. They're doing it again this year. It's a small group of students, but they told me they saw this series that I produced. They weren't aware of this history, and they've brought Hash Wednesday back. So
that's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Isn't that cool?
I think it was right there, right around the first time that we talked to you was they were bringing the Hash Wednesday back, and I had talked to you about listening to the previous year where they really wanted to, but it fell through, and you were talking about how you had just had interviewed and talked to the people about it. So that was awesome to me, because that's just some cool Illinois history right there.
I mean, straight up. Yeah, very cool. So I don't know how you were talking. Oh, you said, you know, Urbana had kind of led the way, and that's what spawned that thought of Hash Wednesday. I think that, you know, Hash Wednesday maybe played a role in that. And somebody asked, wait, what's the website? colmemo.com/UIUC if you're wanting to see that Hash Wednesday stuff. So
but you kind of led the way to that conversation by saying, right, we took a step backwards in legalization, because places like Urbana and stuff, you got like a small ticket. It was already decrimmed. And now in places like that, it's Class A misdemeanor.
Bingo.
So giant step back. Not even a little step back, giant step back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's kind of amazing that in the legal state that we are, that right, you know, you go down the street, you get arrested, and you just bought it legally, and you know, it wasn't even that bad, you know, 5 years ago. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, different story, but 5 years ago, they were at least starting to see the light. So, but no, it's good to see at least some of these places, because I've always hated seeing, you see everything happen up north. You don't see a whole lot happening, especially the first, like when you get down my way, you really don't see much happening. I gotta go across the border, go over to Missouri.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the only thing that happens down there is in Missouri, or shout out to Southern Illinois University. They've got their Cannabis Science Center, which University of Illinois also has a cannabis. They've got cannabis courses and stuff, but I know Southern Illinois University has actually thrown events where there's consumption there. I mean, this is a higher education, pun intended, institution, and they're teaching people how to grow. They're having consumption events. I've smoked with a lot of the faculty, around Carbondale. So, but like you say, it is very few and far between in Southern and Central Illinois. It seems like a lot of the stuff is going on in Chicago, which.
Yeah, and I mean, rightfully so, right? Like that much of the population's up there, and we just bitch about it. But
right. Exactly.
But it would be nice to be able to start to get some of these events a little more, centralized in the state. You get some of these little hillbillies that you ain't seen going up competing in some of these events and blow these city boys' minds.
You know what, Fluffs? I think we're going to have to be the change we want to see in the world. We're going to have to start bringing some events to Central and Southern Illinois. And shout out to just another shout out, IllinoisNewsJoint.com. They do a lot of events, I would say, in Southern and Central Illinois, or at least
they're out there by the kind of like in the Peoria area-ish, right? Where they're doing events.
Yeah, I think, they do Champaign. A lot of times they collaborate with Southern Illinois University, so they'll do some downstate. But wanted to give a shout out to them because another great resource.
Absolutely. And what's another one that what is it? The Two Dope Dudes.
Oh my gosh,
another great one.
Two Dope Dudes. Yeah, you guys, if you can get one or both of them on the show. I think if people want to search it up, it's called the Elevated News Podcast with Two Dope Dudes. I think that's what it's called. If you search up Two Dope Dudes Podcast, you'll probably find it. But I just wanted to throw out Elevated News Podcast because I think that's technically what they go by. But yeah, dude, they have a great show. They get great guests, and they cover a lot of what's going on in Illinois, including some of these events, which is kind of what, we're kind of talking about. So. Yeah, it's like you say, I don't know. It'd be cool to see more events. I sort of get why you don't. It's hard to profit off of a weed event. You can get sponsorships or whatever, but since you have to sell weed at a dispensary and just the way that all the regulations are.
They've made the regulation in Illinois really hard to make a profitable event. I've definitely seen that, or at least an event that that you could get people to anyway.
Right. And I mean, I don't think this would be a foreign concept, which is kind of funny since I'm about to talk about Canada. So technically what we're talking about, but I don't know about you in Canada, but like, it's not like crazy to have like a bar service at a party, right? That's not like a crazy thing. Right. No, but weed, apparently that's a fucking crazy thing. I mean, do you even see that in Canada? Do you see like when you go to parties, do they have like an open bar for weed?
No, I think people just go outside and smoke weed, kind of thing. If you're
fair,
have a bunch of pre-rolls or whatever, just go outside and smoke.
Yeah, private events.
A dream though would like that would be freaking rad.
Right.
Go hang out. Like I envision like a pool hall or a pub kind of type atmosphere. So that would be my preference, right? Let's go and there's your fucking jars of weed lined up, just like you might see at a dispensary or whatever. I'll take some of that.
Yeah, any of the parties I've seen that are anywhere, like it's either where I am in Ontario, it's either legit business party kind of thing where it's all LPs, licensed producers, and their stuff, and then that's where the regulations are on full, just like any other thing. There's usually no leeway on that, so it'll be only their products, and it's like generally only given to people that have a certain license called a can sell or something. So you have to be involved in the industry and like badged basically to be eligible. Or if the general public does have access to the party, they just have to use their own cannabis. They can't obtain any at the party. That's it's kind cool. It's like they don't care if you smoke your own, but you can't get the handouts unless you have your license, like your can. So that's Ontario. I don't know the rest of Canada, but
Yeah.
I believe so. I had someone close to me in the past that was working in the industry, so I got to see it quite close up. So I believe I'm correct on what I say, but
I think BC's probably about the same. All the events I hear about are either Vancouver's 420, which is a massive free for all, which I've got to get down there one time, but haven't. And then you got like, if otherwise it's all fucking corporate sponsorship events and stuff like that, where honestly just doesn't even seem like the kind of place I'd want to hang out. Like, is it's just a sterilization of cannabis, in my opinion, and so it'd be why the dream I think would be for us to just kind of do our own kind of like DGC Cup, something like that, up in our area, your area, if we want something like that to happen, because I think you'd have to do it on the fly. And I own this property and just figure out the logistics of it from there, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's what he was just saying about for us down here too. Is that might be what we have to do, is kind of make our own thing. And I think in doing this, that's the way that you just help bring it out to people's eyes, grow it bigger, get more people wanting to do it. But right, it's you got to have the money behind it to get it started, and especially with some of these, I don't know how easy or willing it is to work with some of these dispensaries and or cannabis companies here in Illinois. If you were trying to throw an event like because pretty much here, I don't know what the logistics of trying to do like a personal or like medical type, thing would be. That might be a no-go, without doing it kind of underground.
I've seen some, it is interesting. I was gonna remind me, I got a Canada I'll write it down so I don't forget. I got a question for my Canadians. But there is a little bit of a, let's call it a loophole. I hate that term, especially now that hemp has become a big thing, but the way I've seen some events go down, and I'm sure I'm going to see more this summer in June when I'm up in Chicago, people will, depending if they're cannabis companies or if they're people that host these events, what they'll do is, they'll partner with some brands, and the brands will send some of their employees to acquire cannabis, right? So they'll buy their max 30 grams or 500 milligrams of edibles, whatever they're handing out. Bonus points if they can hire some medical patients, because not only do you get it as a cheaper price, but then your medical patient can carry more technically, right? Since you have a higher possession limit. So they'll buy a bunch of weed, they'll bring it back to the party, and they'll give it away. I've been to a few different events where like people are just fucking handing out joints and edibles, and I've walked away with I'm like, shit, we're in Illinois right now. It's rare, but it happens, and it's with legal companies, and it's pretty cool when it happens. Now, the reason I kind of say that I don't like loopholes is because I feel like it's silly that we have to do that anyways. And I also wonder with things like this, like, okay, so you send a bunch of people to get a bunch of weed. Let's say the cops come, just hypothetically. That's a bummer, right? But let's just say the cops come. Whose weed is that? Like, do we divvy it out? Like, who's going to be charged? Because there's a lump sum of cannabis that we're apparently handing out to people, and gifting is okay, I guess. I've asked the state about that. Gifting is okay. Technically, you're not supposed to gift medical cannabis because it's not taxed the same. But like I say, from what I hear, it happens.
Well, I mean, that's the same as you're not supposed to give your codeine to people.
True. Yeah.
So that's where you have to look at that. I'm not giving you my pills that my doctor prescribes. I can't give you my medical cannabis.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see the thought behind that, but that's as far as I'm going to give it as I see it.
No, I think I agree with you. Like, it's like that's your allotment. That was supposed to be your medical cannabis. That's why you got it at that tax rate. And so you shouldn't be giving it away to people, because if they wanted to buy it, they could have bought it, and they would have gotten it at a different tax rate. So, but it is interesting. Yeah, gifting is legal in Illinois, but it can only be cannabis that you bought from a dispensary via adult use. It can't be your home grow, and it can't be something you bought with your medical card. But from what I hear,
this is why I'm really excited. They're getting rid of the whole like smell-proof packaging thing, because that's going to make some yes, hopefully, thank God, fingers crossed. But hopefully, that's going to make some of these shitty loopholes where I will be able to say that, well, I just had to put my cannabis in this package over here, so I'm giving out, my home grow, but I'm giving out my now purchased cannabis? Question mark?
right?
Uh-huh. You can't prove I didn't buy this. Fuck off. Get out of here.
That's what I always tell people. If you're going to gift cannabis, just don't tell them where you got it.
How many of you guys would be somewhat like, okay, think of it like dispensaries bought cannabis as opposed to homegrown cannabis? How many of you are more likely to be offended if someone handed you a bag of dispensary cannabis as opposed to friggin' Fluff's like friggin' homegrown Black Forest? Like, it's just I'm cracking jokes at the situation here, but it just like it just seems absurd to me once again. Like, just you like regulation up here is dumb, but like you guys just take it to a whole nother level where it's like they'll split hairs over anything down there, and it's wow.
This is actually it's interesting enough, and I think that the Illinois has written it in pretty slick enough that the answer is no. We cannot in any way charge if by giving a gift. I believe they say if a gift and money changes hands at any given time, then it's no longer a gift.
Correct. Yeah, you're pretty well on the dot with that, and I can actually even display the answer that I got from the state maybe here in just a moment.
Yeah, because that's another thing, man. I hope we get to touch on here for a while is just all of your interactions with a lot of these people.
Yeah.
When Canada first legalized, there was a whole bunch of online dispensaries. I'm not sure if how many of them are still going, but instead of charging for the weed itself, you were given the weed for free, but paying the delivery fee was how a lot of them. Now, I don't know if that's been a closed loophole kind of thing or what, but that's how a bunch were getting away with it.
Interesting. That is super interesting. Yeah, back to that question that you guys displayed on screen. This is an answer from the state of Illinois. They said individuals over the age of 21 may give gifts of cannabis to other adults over the age of 21, so long as the amounts are below the personal possession limits and nothing of value is exchanged. So yeah, you can't. I think the other question was like, can I charge for my time or whatever? No.
I love that. That's how they get you. Nothing of value is exchanged. Like, you fuckers.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it was interesting. So I kind of reached out to them. They also said that there's a lot of other things. If people want to read this whole article, it's at colememo.com. The headline is exclusive. State of Illinois confirms gifting of cannabis is legal. I noticed the reason I wrote this article is because I noticed that the mention of gifting cannabis had disappeared from their FAQ, which after writing this article, they updated their website and they added the question back. So they were like, oh, snap. And I don't think, by the way, I don't think they did this purposefully. I think it was just a mistake. I think they just kind of overlooked the fact that they had removed it, and it took a nerd like myself to be like, hey, there's something missing. And they're like, oh shit, you're right, Cole. Our bad.
Right. Because something like that, like we're all just waiting to look for that little loophole or that little gifting, like to where we're like, all right, so I gave this to my friend. You tried to get me. I know I saw somewhere in there. I'm not going to get in trouble for that. So
literally. And what's so funny about that is, to your point, like we grasp onto those little things on websites because like I wouldn't think twice about like I bought a few beers earlier. Like I wouldn't think twice about like if you were here, Fluffs, giving you one. Like it's not that big of a deal. I'll give you a snack too. Like you don't think about those things because you're like, it's legal. Why couldn't I give it to you? But it's funny how complicated, back to what Cariboo Heart TV was saying. I can't remember your name. I'm calling you Cariboo Heart TV. Brad? Yeah, what you were saying, like, we just regulate the fuck out of cannabis here. We act like it's a nuclear material. Like, we need to make sure that the person in custody of it is going to be responsible. You know.
Funny enough, I have worked in the nuclear side. You're not too far off.
I wonder if it's a lot of it's because it's still kind of new and scary to those that don't actually know better. Now they're like, I'm from British Columbia, where it's been legal for 20 years before it was legal, practically, right? Like it's just it was kind of everywhere, and cops aren't going to do shit about it unless you give them a reason. If you get caught with way too much, then yeah, we're going to start asking questions. You get caught with an eighth or a quarter, odds are they're just going to take it or stomp it into the ground in front of you, and that's all it really was. And it's just, which says to me, it's just been a big more out in the open. People are more used to it, so it's not scary and big. It's not heroin and fentanyl like we got told our whole lives. And then whereas you guys are just kind of coming out of the fucking Stone Age and still not even federally legal.
But that's the thing. We're not all coming out of the Stone Age, right? We're all there's still red states, and there's still people in our highest ups that are still screaming this crazy shit about cannabis.
People that literally don't know what they're talking about. I mean, that drives me fucking nuts.
And so we in the States, no matter where you are, I think the legalization in these kinds of questions or these kinds of talks are important because you can see shit like Michigan, Colorado, California. You see their legalization. You see all of how much further along they are. Then you see the other states that had come on board a little bit after that, right? You got the Illinois and things, and now you got new states. And so all these people with new states with new laws getting written, it's very important to see what we got, how we got screwed, what Michigan got, how they got like really good but fought the fuck for it, and how some of these other states, right? How all this is going. These are very important for all these states coming online. Because, right, we're not all still legal yet. There are still places still coming. So
I gotta say, from looking up north, looking down below on you guys, though, Michigan in particular, but also Colorado, you guys got it going on. Compared to Canada here, like, yeah, we're fully legal. Nothing's really gonna happen, but we don't have events and cool shit going on. Like, like you guys really rally and do some cool shit. It's fucking awesome to see. I like I said, here coming up on, what is it, Sunday or Monday, we'll have 420 down in Vancouver. We're not going to be able to make it to that, but that's about the only big cannabis get together where it's anybody can show up.
Yeah, no, well said. And to the point of it not being completely legal or not feeling that way, maybe this is a good opportunity for me to show the trailer for my mini doc. I've got it pulled up. You guys want to see it if you haven't seen it?
Get it up, man.
Yeah, I figure maybe some of your audience may have not seen this yet. So here, we'll watch it. It's a short 1 minute and 30-second preview. Here it is.
Beginning January 1st, 2020, the recreational use of cannabis will be legal in the state of Illinois.
Available to stream now, my mini doc dives into the history of Illinois legalization, starting with
January 1st. What should we expect? The biggest thing that we need people to understand is that January 1, in terms of the criminal justice system here in this state, is the end of prohibition.
See how Illinois missed its chance at real cannabis reform with key failures, including the fact that
the program includes regulation on possession limits.
So people can still be arrested for a possession.
And I want to highlight that in its first year of legalized recreational marijuana in the state of Illinois, they arrested 3 times as many Black people for possession than any other race.
We've run into so much cannabis, we've run out of places to put it.
I've represented people and taken their cases through the court system who got charged with more serious crimes only because the police said that they smoked cannabis. And not because the police said you have illegal cannabis, or not because you have too much cannabis, or not because you're high on cannabis, but because I can smell it and that's it.
Attorney goes, he understands that he can't be smoking and his cannabis flower shouldn't be open. And I was like, I'd like to say for the record that I was not smoking and my flower was not open.
So that's where we're at right now in Illinois.
Yeah.
And I hope it changes.
Start watching now at colememo.com/minidoc.
And thanks again, by the way, guys, for giving me a chance to kind of share some of this work I've put together. I really do appreciate the space and the invitation to come on tonight.
No, this is, I find it to be important to get out to people. We're still fighting. This is far from over, and I don't do as much work as I should. But you do. You do all that work, man. And the least we can do is help get you out there to help inspire other people, show people where to go. I mean, you know, like I said, I rely on going to your site and stuff to kind of get my information. When we were filling out those witness slips, you were key in that for me, for a lot of other people. You know, I would have not known to fucking, hey, everybody I know, get on this shit. You know, I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for you. And so that's why I do find it important. I want to bring you back at least somewhat regularly, you know, yearly, fucking biannual, whatever it be, so that we can have these conversations. It is that important.
Yeah. Well, likewise, I said this last time, but we really got to make it happen. I'd love to have you. I know kind of technically you're on my show. I wouldn't say you're on my show right now. You're on my channel right now, but I would love to have you all on just to kind of hear, like, I mean, have you discussed that? Why don't we do it right now? How did you all start this show?
Pretty much COVID, man.
Okay.
Part of it, yeah.
But like, how do you, I'm pointing up at you, Fluffs, how do you know these? You're both Canadians, right? How the hell did that happen?
I was just a lurker. I was in chat for quite a while, and I never went away, so they eventually just drag me on, I guess.
Nice.
I can tell you how I found all these fuckers. So I was always looking for a valid kind of good weed community. And I found the DGC a long time ago online, and some members of that community started a thing called Cannabis. And Cannabis was kind of like this weird Instagram-y, Facebook-y, but just for weed thing, right? And so it used to be people like fucking growing and giving out tips, and it was like good shit, not like this this Reddit like bullshit. It wasn't just the fucking CalMag assholes and stuff like that. It was people like trying to help people grow. And somehow or another, I found this ridiculous dude Cariboo right here who was running a podcast, and I think at the time I was one of like 4 people in fucking chat, and I was just like, holy shit, man, I actually get to like just talk to this dude and he talks back to me, man. It's cool. So I just hung around these fuckers until one day he said, man, you want to come talk to us? And that's how I ended up here.
For me, man, honestly, it's been living in a small town. Everyone I know seems to smoke weed. Nobody really grows it. I had one guy that I used to work with years ago that he grows it, and he lives an hour away, kind of thing. But we were both kind of at the beginner stages where you're getting good, but you kind of want to learn to take the next steps, you know. And there's nobody to ask because all the growers out in my area are old school fucking prohibition era growers where you keep your mouth shut, you don't ask questions, and that
right, keep it to yourself.
Legals, right? So it's like, fuck. What do you do? So it's okay, well, let's start a YouTube channel. I was doing some aquaponics and shit like that at the time, or trying to do aquaponics, it'd be a better way to put it. So actually cool stuff and just putting it up on YouTube and trying to do like a weekly grow diary. This happened in my grow room this week, and then kind of wanted to progress to having like a multi-person panel, whether it be me, one other, me, multiples, and then found cannabis, right? And it was like all of a sudden there's people like Fluff that were jumping. Honestly, I thought Fluff was British when we first started talking on cannabis. I don't know what I don't know what it was. It's something about the cat, maybe the fluffy kins. It sounds like maybe, yeah, I maybe. And then he comes on the show for the first time in the back room of the Zoom before we go live. And it's like, oh, no, he ain't British at all. That motherfucker looks like he could scrap. Then sure enough finds out he's lifelong martial artist, and yeah, he can scrap. But it was just not knowing anybody that grows and wanting to progress myself. Looking for genetics was another really big part of it, because I live in a really small town of central British Columbia, and there's like 4 or 5 strains in this area that are popular, and everybody's got cuts of those clones. And it's like, well, I don't want to grow the same thing everyone else is growing. I want new stuff. And it's like, and then through cannabis, it's like, you remember the old like tape trading scene from like the 80s and 90s and stuff like that, where maybe you'd record a tape and mail it off to somebody and stuff like that. It's almost like that, because it's like we have those discussions. Oh, what do you got for beans? Oh, I'm looking for this. And before you know it, people are mailing them off all over the place. And it's amazing. It's cost effective. I find the genetics I get in the mail from our general group of like closet pollen chuckers are oftentimes better than the stuff that I've paid $50-$100 or more for a package. Just closet pollen chuckers. Huh. And they're more than happy to give you beans. They're just, oh shit, you'll grow my shit? Fuck yeah, here you go. And they'll send you tons. And it's amazing. Whereas you can go to an online seed vendor place, and you're paying, like I said, like $50 minimum generally, right? And it's the weed community that we've found it's an amazing thing. And if I hadn't found all this, I think of like what being just a little hillbilly ass backwoods freaking grower, like I don't know, I'd be able to grow good weed still, or I was able to back then, but like, man, y'all have helped out. Or when you get those sudden problems, like an infestation that you've never seen or something like that, and you go into the Discord or something like that, and you start posting up that, and immediately you got a dozen people giving you good, proper answers, instead of like Fluff mentioned earlier, the CalMag assholes. Remember them on Facebook when you try to learn a thing or two about growing on Facebook? And everyone's freaking, oh, CalMag this or that. And then they freaking chew you out for asking beginner questions. And it's like, well, no, man. Like, everybody starts out somewhere. There's questions that I still see to this day that'll shake my head and just kind of giggle to myself. There's no need to be rude.
Yeah, no need to be rude.
The sense of community that was built by Cariboo here, it's crazy. I've been around for years now, developed some really, really good, strong friendships. I've had people come from miles away to come hang out at my house when I had a little camp out for kind of based on the channel here. And they have one down south too, and it's a big hit. It's just crazy how, we're looking for grower companions. And that's a lot of the old school still kind of sticks around, where people don't really talk about it too much, or it's coming around now quite a bit, but it's pretty neat that you see, 50 or so people in here each time we go live. And
you're popping.
Yeah, it was the big reason that when they asked if I would come out, I was like, you know what? Like, it was, I don't think we were quite legal yet, actually, in Illinois. Maybe we were, but maybe just for medical at the time, but not rec. But I was like, right, like, as for like grower wise, like, I want to get out there. Like, I want to be that base of just the normalization, be out, talk about it, because we're not going to get it normalized. We're not going to get people, to stop the fucking stigma without getting out there and having at least a few half intelligent conversations. So So I thought, this was kind of my part to try to help that normalization of cannabis throughout just all of it.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
How about yourself?
How did I get into it?
How did you get into getting into especially like the legal aspect of doing this?
It's a good question. I would say it started with like one of my first trips to Colorado, which I remember turning 21, and I wasn't I don't think I drank much at all at the time. You guys maybe saw I've been drinking a beer tonight, but I don't drink that often. And that's just been kind of a consistent thing for me. Like I'll have a beer or two or whatever, or like this, tall boy, but it's just not something that's really ever been that big of a part of my life. But the cannabis, I can't say the same thing. Cannabis is, ever since it was introduced to me, has been a big part of my life. And so I remember I turned 21, and I'll keep this story somewhat short because I've told it a few times, but I think it's a good story. I remember laying in bed the night I turned 21, and I was like, I was really looking forward to this. It was kind of like one of my last milestone birthdays. I feel like it's like, you turn 16, you turn 18, you turn 21. Like those are the milestones. You get to drive, you get to be an adult, and then you get to.
Well, and then you got like what, 32 when your insurance goes down?
I was actually about to say, I think the age that it was at the time was like 25 or 26. So maybe you could look at that as like a last milestone, you get your insurance to go down. But yeah, 21, it's like, oh, I'm 21. But I was laying in bed and I just didn't feel very satisfied. Like I was like, this doesn't, everybody makes the 21st birthday seem like it's like, woo, crazy. But it didn't feel that way because I had a beer that night because I got to buy my first beer, but I had a beer. Like I just wasn't that big of a deal to me. And I remember laying in bed and just kind of mulling that thought over. And then I was like, so a few months before I had turned 21, I had went and visited a friend in Maryland near Washington, D.C. And it was one of the biggest drives I'd ever done. It was about 12 hours. I was laying in bed and I was thinking, how long could it take to drive to Colorado? Because I'm 21 now. I could go fucking buy legal weed in Colorado. And I think it said like 14 or 15 hours. And I was like, fuck, that's like 3 more hours than 12. 12 hours is nothing. Let's fucking go. Literally that next day, I left work. I scheduled off, I think the Monday. It was a Friday. So I left work on that Friday night. I was like, I'm going to Colorado tonight. I'm going to get to Colorado tomorrow morning, buy a bunch of fucking weed, head back over the weekend. And I remember going to my first dispensary and being like super psyched. I had gotten all this cash and I was like just blown away. There's like a wall of weed in front of me. And I'm like, I want an ounce of that. I want an ounce of that. I want some of those edibles. And they're like, whoa, 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 you're already over your limit. And I was like, my limit? What are you talking about? Like I brought a bunch of fucking cash in here. Like I thought that was my limit. Right. And they explained to me the concept of purchase limits and possession limits. And I was like, wait, I thought this was legal. Like, and what I think of legal, like when I go to the liquor store, I can buy as much as my wallet allows me to. And that's when I became admittedly a little bit obsessed with what I see to be the shortcomings of legalization, I say in quotes. And so I don't know. I think it was actually around COVID. I think that's maybe what we all have in common. I was looking for a little bit of an escape. I had done podcasting in the past. I've always loved podcasts, but I never really had anything like much to talk about. And I was like, this is something to talk about. And so that's how I started. Yeah, it was just like, let's just talk about, this industry is coming online. I had a medical card for a while before that, but I think Fluffs, you mentioned it. I still didn't feel comfortable talking about it, even though I had the med card. But I was like, well, now it's supposed to be legal. Everybody can buy it, so it's not that big of a deal. Let's talk about it. And that's how I started doing the podcast. So
The thing I find that where the podcasting and the internet talk about cannabis is best is, like I said earlier, everyone I know seems to smoke it, but only one other person seems to grow it, which means once you get kind of talked about that curved bag of weed in front of you and your buddies, the conversation just ends. Whereas, like all of us, we'll sit there and talk about the subject, and you can see people's eyes glaze over. They're like, "Oh my god, there he goes again," and it's so. While yeah, it seems to be everyone, or at least in my area, everyone seems to like and smoke weed and stuff like that. There's very few people that are fanatical about it. And that's where the internet can take that huge spread out population and kind of throw that lasso around, I guess, and bring us in closer together and share these ideas and talk. Is like, hey, imagine how much happier you would have been had you had the opportunity to have had this conversation or something like that before you got to Colorado on that first trip, right? And just kind of not had that shock, because I probably would have made that same mistake, to be honest. Just so legal means legal, and you would not put any, like you said, as deep as your wallet will go, or your bank account, or as much as your truck or car will hold. That's how much they'll let you take out the door.
Right.
Why not with weed? Because weed ain't never killed anybody. As far as I'm aware of, I've lost a lot of friends, family members, to alcohol-related issues. Sad.
Straight up, dude. Yeah. Yeah. And I think Willie Nelson had said, the only person he knows that got hurt from weed was when a bale of it fell on his buddy.
There you go. Well, you know what? There was this one time I was helping my buddy in the garden, and I fucking stabbed him with the scissors, because you talk with our hands and shit. We were both fucking arguing about something. Next thing you know, he's like, fucking motherfucker, you stabbed me. And I was like, so, I mean, there was a weed injury right there, but that was a little different.
We can all agree, I guess, that we've maybe smoked.
He should have gave me the blunt.
Like some say sativa will do this and just get you a little paranoid, maybe a little off edge. Some of the new users too, we've heard this where they overconsume and they get a little messed up, right? So there is that little bit of room for the intoxication level to be amplified and someone to cause injury to self. There was someone in Colorado who jumped out at a hotel balcony or something. They're on an edible. That caused a big stir. And so there is that little weird little spot you can kind of put in there, but yeah, not much.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. And, I think that it's good to bring up that point because I might be loosely quoting Hamilton Morris when I say this, who's, if people don't know, Google Hamilton Morris. They talk about all sorts of drugs.
The pharmaceutical or whatever.
Yeah, they had a show on Vice back in the day. And one of the great points that they made is, in America, we should be allowed to engage in activities where there are risks, and we are in so many different ways. Like, you can buy alcohol, as we just established. Like, many people get hurt by alcohol. I ride a motorcycle in the summer. My mom hates it. I love it. A lot of bad things can go wrong. You can parachute. We have the freedom to engage in these risks. And I think that people do themselves a little bit of a disservice when they say cannabis or psychedelics, they're safe, they're spiritual, they're this or that. That's not the point. While those things may be true, I don't want to piss anybody off in the chat. It might be medicinal, it might be this or that. I'm not disputing that. It may be, but you're almost, and somebody said it in the chat, that goes for abusing anything. Cannabis can be abused. Yeah, I mean, look, smoking anything is probably not safe, probably not healthy for you, but you should be able to, if you believe you live in a free country, be able to engage in those risks. You should be able to explore these alternate states of consciousness, whether or not they're safe, therapeutic, spiritual, whatever. The point is not that they're safe. The point is that if we live in a free society, we should be able to engage in some risks and as an adult, kind of being aware of what those risks are. So I think G-Base said it, like, yeah, you might get fucking paranoid. Expect
Hey, aspirin, aspirin's safe. There's lots of things that are safe until you overdo it, right? I'm sure fucking. I just think of it because my wife was watching some goofy show with us, and there was these people like brushing their teeth with bleach. And sure, I'm sure enough of that is considered safe. But right, once you break that limit, that's just this much too far. Now you're not safe anymore. And to that point, you were talking about Hamilton. I used to love watching that when he did the show on the hills where the people just kind of like lived off of amanitas. All right,
Yeah.
I'm always a fan of like, right, most of these natural drugs pretty good for you. You're doing. Those were the people that you're like, right, see those guys, they took it too far. There's something a little bit fucking wonky with them. Mushrooms did it cool. No,
Remember Saturday morning at booth camp with lobsters, green wrappers?
Oh, bro.
Yeah, we became that tribe for a minute. Yeah.
we did. Yeah, we did. Shit. Yeah, you gotta be careful.
Somebody said in the chat, this is a good point. You can die from drinking too much water. Anything in excess can be dangerous, and that's, look, I'm going to break some news. I don't know if you noticed, but I haven't hit cannabis once during the show. Last time, I think it was the first thing that I did when we got on the show. I've kind of taken a break from cannabis. I don't plan for it to be permanent by any means. And I say I've taken a break. I've just really laid off. I used to be like all day, every day. I've just kind of reeled it back. One of the things I love about cannabis is that I think, I don't know about you all, but I think I know this is going to sound super hippy dippy. Hear me out for a second, but I think it talks to you. I think it tells you things you need to know, things you need to be aware of. I think the best example I can give to you is, and I feel like this is like a universal experience. Correct me if I'm wrong if you haven't had this experience, but you go through a day, you're sober, you get home and you smoke, and you're like, no, why did I say that to that person? Why did I handle it that way? Like, I could have just been like, chill. Like, what was my problem? And it's not like I like get in fights with anybody or anything, but you could always be kinder as you said your name's Brad. I'm bad with names.
Yeah.
Dude, fuck yeah. I got the name. I'm so happy with myself. Sometimes you can just handle things better and be kinder, and cannabis does give me that grace. I feel like I am a kinder person on cannabis, but taking a break from it. I still use it. I was actually going to grab a cannabis drink before I got on. I'll still drink the drinks, smoke, here and there. But
it's actually a good point. I wanted to kind of touch on that with you because you're a big advocate for the cannabis drinks. And you have talked about how you feel how you can see that being kind of the more social norm than smoking or anything else, is having that infused drink. And I can see that. And I think it's that alcohol culture in us, right? That we have that drink just feels more normal. And you were just saying you were laying off. So are you just kind of here and there? Are you still kind of?
Oh yeah, like this weekend, I was fucking cheeching it up with my friend. I was drank the drinks. But to your point, yeah, to answer your question, I just haven't been smoking the way I have for, I guess, the last 5 years that I've been broadcasting, which is, like I say, usually all day, every day. That's just not how I've been consuming lately. And it's not for any specific reason. Like I say, for all intents and purposes, I'd love to get back at it. It's just that
you haven't had the need for it.
I haven't had the need for it. And to put it another way, it's like the plant has been telling me, like, yeah, maybe you can lay off of it for a little bit. I'll be here for you, Cole.
I feel like the medication ebbs and flows. We have a system that can get saturated. You can reach a point of saturation that you just don't need it. And then your body can say, all right, we can lay off. And then you'll get to that point where you need more of it. I find that I probably go through that. And now, for me, it's going to be more of a heavier to lighter usage rather than I'm kind of laying off. Mine's going to be like, my layoff might be an hour or so, I might not put as much in the morning coffee, something like that. We may not need 300 milligrams to start the day. We only may need 100. That kind of situation, right? That's how it can ebb and flow for me. Because I've definitely found where I have hit even like shows like this, I have trouble sleeping on shows after on these shows afterwards, and I know it's because I sit here, I get all wound up, and I just rip this shit. Just keep going, and yeah, I've been medicating all day like normal, and now I'm just excessively doing it, and so. Where normally it helps you sleep, I kind of, if I get over medicated, and that means in anything, you give me enough, they used to give me enough morphine and they would, or not morphine, Vicodin, and they used to, well, if you can't sleep, just take more. I said, I took more and it just made me more agitated and staring at the ceiling more. They said, well, take more. And I did the same thing. And I kept staring at the fucking ceiling more and being more agitated. And so I do the same thing with anything. When I over medicate, I just, so, these nights, they get to you. You get over medicated. And so you're like, well, fuck. All right. It's going to be a bad night. But the next day, right, back it off a little bit, right? Not a lot, but a little bit, So, but it ebbs and flows. It talks to you 100%. It kind of helps you. It helps you with your medicinal needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I do like about taking a break from it, it's funny. I've had people on my podcast that don't believe cannabis should be legal at all. I'll be dropping another episode with somebody like that here in the near future. If people want to see other episodes I've done with people like that, if you go to thecolememo.com/Sam, SAM, you can see episodes that I've hosted with people that don't believe cannabis should be legal at all. I've hosted debates between them. I've just had them on my show. It's always good fun. And one of the things that they say is like, weed's so addictive. And it's like, dude, I know so many people that literally will take, like I'm doing right now, take a break from cannabis just so they can get higher on cannabis. I don't know any addict that behaves that way. Like,
you ain't gonna see no fucking heroin addict being like,
right,
nah, I just need to take a break.
Oh, I'm gonna lay off for a little bit so that I can. Yeah, you don't see.
You can take a break today, and maybe tomorrow will be better.
Right, right.
It's exactly weird. It's weird because it's like being just like a leafy green material from a plant. People really push it into that, like, it's just a plant. I'm a hippie. But like, in the wrong hands, like I said, people get paranoid and shit off, and they can cause a bit of an issue. But what you're saying too is addicts don't behave the way cannabis users do. Even daily, heavy, chronic cannabis users, like you can take them away from it, and it's not like they may get a little agitated, like, hey, I need my weed, but they're not going to get anywhere near any of the other dependent type drugs where get sick. Dope
right.
sick, whatever.
I feel like the other stereotype, like weed makes you lazy and useless and stuff like that. I think that was more stems from the type of person you were before you even smoked that weed. Because most productive people I know that smoke weed throughout the day are generally not blazing joint after joint after joint all day long, even though they may smoke all day long, but they're productive people in general and would be even if they weren't smoking. Whereas a lot of the people, and I'll fit right into this groove if I want to, I can sit there and smoke weed and do nothing all day long with the best of them. Right. And I just, when you look at the people that the kind of the useless, lazy stoners are kind of those people. It's like, well, yeah, I know you've always been that way. And then it's like, but meanwhile, look at her go. She's getting shit done. Super successful.
That's funny.
Yeah, I seen something here, and just to kind of keep on just a little bit of topic of some of the things happening in Illinois. Do we have a psychedelic fucking thing going through sometime soon, or something with mushroom bill?
There's a few different proposals, and that's actually what I was going to ask our Canadian friends. I'll answer your question real quick, but I'm curious what mushroom policy looks like in Canada, if you don't mind. But yes, there's a couple of proposals. One of them's pretty awesome. One of them's a little bit more conservative, if you will. One of them would deschedule psilocybin entirely. One of them would create like a pilot program similar to our first medical cannabis program. So yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I don't hear a lot right now about it. But I definitely am in touch with people that are behind those policies, and they're pushing as much as they can. There's just a lot of things going on right now.
I know something like that would definitely be getting pushed, but is there any movement on those things at all?
I hear good things. I'll keep it at that. I hear good things, and I guess what I mean by that is that the right people seem supportive of the idea in the legislature. So I think it has a future. But it remains to be seen. I would be over promising if I started name dropping and stuff like that. But it seems like it could happen, and it seems like it has support from the right people to happen. But you never know with politics. It's like a slippery eel, You think about it.
And flat out, they have to see the bottom line, and the bottom line isn't as clear with that as it is with weed.
I mean, yeah, I would even say that growing mushrooms is probably easier than growing weed. And you might
I've had fair luck.
Yeah, I haven't tried. I've got everything I would need to do it, but I've not tried. But I've just heard that it's like before you know it, if you do it right, you've got more mushrooms than you know what to do with. And I guess that's not a problem, right? That's fucking awesome. But if you're talking about making money, that's a problem. If it's super easy to grow, like cannabis, it's not that hard.
I mean, it is right with the proper techniques, keeping sterile, doing all that stuff. It's like I said, it's just as easy as can be. And some of these things are screaming fast too. Like they get it done and fill like some weight.
Yeah.
But then that's one even more than cannabis, man. When you get the dried weight off of those, and you just go, man, what the fuck do you mean you only weigh that? You had so much weight when I pulled you. You were like a fucking tennis ball over here.
Straight up. Yeah, no, people are saying exactly what you just said. It's like I'm looking at the chat right now. They say sterilization is key. It takes knowledge, but they grow fast.
Yeah.
They're saying they aren't really easy to grow. I think the sterilization is probably the hardest part, and maybe also because they grow so fast. I know you have to like mist them throughout the day. So if you're not in a position where you can do
that really, I mean, much like every other thing, man, there are definitely grow styles that are beneficial to not doing a whole lot of fuckery with it.
True.
And then mushrooms just get down.
How do I ask this question? Are mushrooms legal in Canada? No? You're muted, G-Bay.
No, they're not legal in Ontario. There was some brick and mortar stores called Fun Guys, but they just kept getting raided. They're trying to use loopholes of like stage of life, like things like when it's at a certain, they can sell you the kits, I think, but once it's
how about on the res?
Anything goes, I think, out there. I don't know.
Anything goes on the res.
I really don't know
how it is.
I don't know.
I just know that I've seen postings of them definitely having a fair fungus selection on the reservation. Spencer.
I've seen candies and such. I've never seen like a jar with dried fruit in it. But I've only usually went to one or two different dispensaries.
Yeah, I will say, and I'm sharing my screen. I'm sharing my screen right now. I had Dana Larson on my podcast, who's from Vancouver. If people want to go to ColeMemo.com, episode 132. But to your point, G-Bay, I don't want to call it a loophole or what, it's basically a loophole. He's been running cannabis dispensaries, but he also has the city's first mushroom dispensary. He also expanded into broader psychedelic access, providing products like coca leaf. I want to try that. LSD and peyote over the counter to adults. So if people want to check out that conversation I hosted, he literally has a mushroom dispensary, which that's in Vancouver, and I would say they're operating under what you might call a gray area. But I was just curious in general of Canada and mushrooms. I didn't know.
No, it's always been a thing out Brad's way. There's always been, like, as an Ontario kid, well, I'm not a kid anymore, but when I was younger, people would like try to go out there and like pick them or find them, whatever. I don't know exactly if it was just myth or whatever, but you know, they're out and about in certain places. East Coast too, I think.
Oh yeah, you get coastal BC and you'll find mushrooms. They're real easy. My line of work, we're tree cutters, so we're constantly chipping trees into the ditch kind of thing. And you can go back like a couple of weeks later and you'll find mushrooms on these chip piles that we just did up. Problem is, I live about as central BC as I get, so the coast is a long ways away.
Another Canadian question. With your cannabis, is it labeled? Have you ever seen cannabis labeled that's been remediated from the dispensary? I heard that in Canada it's required to like have the label, I guess.
I've never noticed it.
Okay.
I have seen non.
No?
I've seen it labeled non-remediated.
Oh, non-remediated. Okay.
Yes, like so it's saying that it has not been. But just the thought of that alone when that came about, yeah, I'm done. I'm out. Not that I really consume much from the dispensary to begin with, but my ex-wife worked there. So there was dispensary weed all over the place. I've always had my own, so I've always stayed on my side of the fence kind of thing, but I just don't trust them with stuff like that. Like, who wants fucking weed blasted with?
It's pretty much why I pretty much is almost 100% homegrown. Like, if it's smokable, it comes from my garden. I do some edibles, but then it's for the reason that right, they don't have to in Illinois tell you it's been remediated in any which way, shape, or form, and they don't have to tell you that it's failed testing and come back. You know, the no reports have ever have to come out. Actually, when you shared a bunch of that, I already knew these facts, but it was another one that just got my blood boiling again. And I was like, oh, yes, these motherfuckers, because I am a medical patient. And I do take the fact that we started this with a medical system seriously. I do think Illinois needs to take their medical side seriously because they fucking don't anymore. It's like, you know, you can tell it's the redheaded stepchild of the Illinois cannabis. They are just trying to make it all wreck. So it just drives me nuts, you know, when you see things like, yeah, oh, should they? Yes, they absolutely, especially on the medical side, because if any kind of those recalls or anything like that happens in anything medical, you fucking find out about
it. Yeah, no, and that's messed up. What you're referring to and is that Illinois protects recall data, unlike, you know, some people will say, well, Michigan, there's so many product recalls. It's because they publish that data. In Illinois, they don't, and well, that's troubling, right? You never know when a product you may, you know, like, it'd be nice to have that transparency. I'd like to see people named and shamed for you know, not producing quality products. And back to the point we started off, I'm sharing my screen again here on episode 112. I talked with Kyle Baker. If people want to check it out, once again, colememo.com. We talk about the science of cannabis cultivation in general, but one of the things he talks about within Illinois is the idea that the standards are so strict to comply with. And we actually there's some links here in the show notes to a Chicago Sun-Times investigation that I actually participated in and had these investigators on the podcast, people from cannabis labs in the state of Illinois, talking about how the standards are so strict, which sounds great, right? Oh, the testing standards are strict. That means I have access to really safe weed, right? Apparently not, according to this guy who's a cannabis cultivation consultant, people that work in the labs. The standards are so strict that it's actually causing massive non-compliance, which is not a good thing, right? But the reason I brought up that question about Canadian cannabis being labeled is because I recently saw that in Massachusetts, they're considering requiring all cannabis that have undergone a kill step or remediation. And I can briefly explain the difference for our listeners. A kill step is when you remediate cannabis before it's tested. You employ that technology. Remediation is when you've tested your cannabis and it's like, this cannabis failed for X, Y, or Z. Oh, okay, we're going to remediate it. So kill step is proactive, remediation is reactive. Massachusetts is considering requiring that all products be labeled, whether they were kill stepped or remediated. And they pointed to Nevada, and they also pointed to Canada. They said Canada requires the Radura symbol, and they for any cannabis that has been radiated. And they said even the FDA for foods, they require food to be labeled as with the Radura symbol for radiated. But since we don't have that regulation for cannabis, like I say, in Massachusetts, they're kind of pushing for that, sort of leading the way, if you will. And it'll just be interesting, you know. I think, like you said, Fluffs, people should have access to that information. So,
absolutely. I mean, especially if you started it out with a medical program, because some of these remediation techniques could cause problems. You don't know, right? So having all this information, especially say you're a fucking cancer patient and you're like getting pumped with all kinds of just wonderful shit. And yeah, you might just think, right, they're pumping me with all kinds of shit, but the last thing you want to do is keep adding more to it or find out that this thing interacts over here with this, so
I don't buy a lot of dispensary weed, and so that might be why I've never noticed anything like that. Or maybe I've even been lucky and not found radiated weed or anything like that. But I will pay more attention to this kind of thing. That actually kind of freaks me out. I feel like the way we put warning labels on individual cigarettes up here on Canada now, if you're selling me a radiated weed, that tells me you fucking knew something was wrong with that. It could be like powdery mildew or something like that potentially. And how bad was it? Did you get it all? I feel you cannot guarantee me that. And just like Fluff said, what if you're like a cancer patient or something like that and you're already fucked up on drugs and stuff like that and the therapies that you're going through? Like, yeah, no, that should be like, boom, like buyer beware type shit to me. They put a parental discretion advisory on records with swear words on it. That's not nearly as bad as potentially harmful.
I think one of the main problems lies in like lobbyists and rich people.
Yeah, you think?
Put the elephant out in the middle so everyone can see it.
You're right.
But then past that, you know, the thing is, like, we'd have to tighten up the whole consumer level of consumerism, amounts of toxins allowed, or whatever you call it, parts per million of bullshit allowed in food and all that. That's so large that, you know, what they're doing with the cannabis isn't really, you know, causing too much stir because, you know, there's, you know, they allow so much in the food and
true.
You know,
yeah.
So
yeah, no, and to your point about lobbyists and, you know, people like that, I know in some states, I think it was Nevada, I'm going off the top of my head right now, but, you know, there was discussion about whether or not to label products like these back in the day, whether they've been remediated or kill stepped. And some of these companies have come on and lobbied against the idea of labeling. Some of these companies I've had on my show, by the way, that use these technologies, or rather that offer these technologies. Like I've literally had people that offer this equipment and this technology to cannabis companies saying, hey, we will make your cannabis safe to consume and all these things. And on the other hand, you see these companies lobbying against labeling requirements because they say, well, it's going to confuse the consumer. It's going to confuse the consumer and make them think, well, this is a dangerous product. And it's like, but if it's not dangerous, then you should just educate them on that rather. And there's no worry. Like my thing is we need to have better, more educated consumers, and labeling everything that has ever happened to the product seems only like it seems like a good step in the way of educating people. I don't think when you say that they're going to be confused, it sounds like you're calling your consumers stupid. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I now that I know that a lot of my foods are remediated in some ways, it's like, all right, like peanuts, for example. I believe peanuts might be like is a product that's often irradiated. It's not. It's not like crazy dangerous. I eat peanuts, you know, but it's nice to know that that's the process they went through.
Well, but that's where you have this argument, right? What they're doing is they're killing, say, the mold spores, right? Peanuts are known to have mold, to just generally be kind of prone to mold, so that's why it's a commonly irradiated product. That doesn't change the fact, like someone else said in chat, that the mold is still, yeah, it's dead, but it's still on that product. It's still there, but they've taken off that risk of it. You know, you still have basically like a mold biomass that kind of sits behind. That still is. I don't know if that's well, right. And if they didn't get everything, leave what you left behind becomes just a breeding ground for the bacteria to take back over, the mold and all the other stuff to take back over. So
I personally feel like the argument they're like, well, we don't want our consumers, we don't want them to feel like they're stupid is invalid because we put warning labels on absolutely everything these days because apparently people are that dumb that we need everything to have a warning label on it. So once again, if this cannabis contains something harmful, we know that there's a 90% chance you're going to smoke it because most people aren't going to go get say an ounce or an eighth of weed from a dispensary and bring it back and turn it into edibles, right? So the odds are you're going to smoke that and inhale that. Like it's, I don't know. It's just dirty pool, and that tells me that you're probably an LP grower who sent your batch in for microbial testing, failed miserably, but you're really wealthy and you don't want to cough that money up, but you know that lobbyist that G-Bay was just talking about over there, and you start greasing a few palms, and okay, now you're able to remediate and you can still offload your weed. And it's just, I don't know, man. I think if you fucked up your batch, sucks to be you. I get it, that would hurt. But yeah, and if you are gonna offload it, it should be like the day-old donut sign, man. This isn't what you want. The good stuff's over there.
Flowering cannabis is so sensitive to environmental factors that growing it on a scale I don't believe is unlimited. There's got to be a cap where, like, yeah, it's a crop that has to be watched. Like,
yeah, to your point, and I want to be clear that I'm not necessarily knocking remediation or kill steps. If I can choose, I won't consume those products, but I'm not necessarily saying right now that they're dangerous or anything else. I'm just saying they should be labeled. And but back to your point, G-Bay, yeah, I think that as soon as you start growing like fields of cannabis, like if you're growing on an industrial level, you might have to employ industrial techniques in order to make that product, in order to allow it to get out the door. And it is what it is, you know. That's why, as Fluffs was just saying, peanuts. I mean, you sell peanuts on an industrial level. Well, you might have to start irradiating some of those peanuts if you want to get them out the door.
But I'm perfectly cool eating the peanuts that I can grow in my backyard without fucking irradiating them or doing anything fucking weird to them.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I'm right there with you. But I don't know. I just wanted to say that kind of clearly, you know, that I'm not necessarily, and even these companies, they're not necessarily saying the product is dangerous as a result of our technology. And to that point, I say, okay, then label it. Let's fucking label it.
But the knowledge should be there, even if at the greatest fact of using it for a knowledge base in case we find out that it was dangerous later. This is data points to be used. So if you don't do it, you don't have the data to say that these were done that way. And when you find out later and say this certain product or whatever, 10 years down the line, because they've been doing it the same way and it came from that, right? You find out that this is a problem. Now you have that data point. So they should want to do it just for that factor.
Right. Yeah.
Or to keep themselves out of that fucking data point, to be like, no. Yeah, we got ours saying it was fine, and these customer bases all got this, and they're fine.
Absolutely. I just wanted to, I noted this earlier, and there's a few viewers I feel like have been waiting patiently. They asked me earlier, but we kind of moved on just briefly. They said, they've heard of these competitions where they'll have home growers kind of come together in Illinois and have like a who's the best home grower. Or I've seen a few of them. I've even been a judge in one of them where it was a really cool event. It was home growers versus corporate. So it was, as you might imagine, home growers.
I would enjoy
versus,
that.
Yeah, licensed growers, and it was cool. I was a judge for it. It was kind of crazy, and people have been asking in the comments because they want to do one. It sounds like they want to do something like that, and they're asking, how do we do that if we can't? As we said earlier, the only cannabis you can gift is from a store. I don't know the answer to that. So I wanted to just address the question. I don't know the answer. I would say if you've heard of those other events, maybe ask people that have run those events. As far as I can tell, the state is kind of just looking the other way, or maybe they didn't hear about those events. I don't know. I will say that the one event that I went to was literally held at a licensed dispensary. So I feel like the state didn't hear about it, or they could have looked the other way. I don't know. It's hard for me to say what exactly
I
happened
feel
there.
like with as ridiculous as some of their rules are, that there were a lot of people looking the other way if they had home growers bring their shit to a licensed dispensary.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't even allow me to bring a
Hold product in, right?
No, a business card.
Oh, wow.
That had our show's logo on it because it had a weed leaf on it.
Wow.
In the dispensary. I couldn't leave a stack of our cards there because of that. So you're going to tell me that you're going to allow somebody? I know I have went in and interviewed once at one of these places, and I thought better of bringing it in with me, but I flat out looked at the guy. I said, "Hey, you want to see what I do? I brought it with me." And he goes, "Ooh, you got it in the car, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "You want to go see?" He's like, "No, we can't do that." He says, I was like, "Oh, okay." So, there's definitely some serious, like, there had to be a lot of looking the other way with that one.
Yeah. Like I say, so I just wanted to address that because it's a good question, and I wish I could tell you this is how you do it, folks. But unfortunately, I don't have that answer. I wish I did today. Wish I did. So
I guess when we start figuring out how to do the mid-state fucking cup, then we'll have answers for that, huh?
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully.
It's kind of not. No, I was about to say sad to say, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It's kind of nice to see, actually, but on such a small scale, the native dispensaries have represented what everyone really wants. If you've ever went into a half decent one, nice presentation, they've got it in jars. If you really ask, you can see the product up close. It's not in a sealed Mylar. So I really enjoy that aspect of going on to reservation land where it's kind of, I don't know the exact laws, but I know that they can run dispensaries kind of their own way, and it works a lot better than the government ones, I tell you.
Yeah, prices are
Not for
reasonable. Typically, quality is typically better than you're going to find at a government dispensary. Huge fan.
But let me say this quick: for the people that like that type of shit, the fake stuff with the flash packaging, quick in and out with the menus and all that shit, leave it there for them. There's people that enjoy that. I want to go talk to a head, like someone who knows something about weed and can open a jar or two for me, and we can talk about it maybe, and hopefully they've used it or they do use it for some sort of specific purpose or ailment. That's, some people go, me personally, I've said this a lot. I don't really have any ailments that I'm like, I need to smoke my weed. Day-to-day agitation is what my ailment is. Like, life pisses me off, so I need to smoke weed to chill it. So I'm fortunate enough that that's the level that I'm on with it. But other people are not, and they really need certain specific types, right? So when you're able to actually look at it and talk about it and see it, and it's so much better. Like, The dispensaries, when it went legal, I was excited. A couple years in, I was like, that's fucked. Mind my
Man,
life.
I wish we had reservations here. Because it
Right?
seems like the closest thing we have to a reservation, I guess the closest thing to Fluffs he has to a reservation is maybe Missouri. The closest thing I have is Michigan, where you can actually go, like you say, see the cannabis, meet the person that grew it, look at it, smell it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes they have big clone runs too, where you go up there,
Yeah.
clones in the spring. That'll be coming up here. I asked to do a little bit of interviewing or whatever. They denied it. The one place I was at, like, nah, we don't need to talk with us. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I was hoping to get a little bit of content for the show eventually one day.
Yeah, sometimes people like that are a little quiet.
And I respect that 100%. I didn't poke prod, just simple little ask, and they said no.
You know, speaking of Michigan, my most recent episode, it's episode 185 at the time of this live stream, where we were recapping Hash Bash of 2025, which I think was just in the last few weekends. And again, Hash Bash inspired Hash Wednesday that we were talking about earlier. It's a thing that's happened in Michigan since I think the 70s. And it's always been this exactly like I was describing Hash Wednesday earlier, where you kind of get on the quad for a college. In this case, it's the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. You smoke weed and everything. And in this most recent episode 185, I had one of my good friends come on the show and talk about their experience. And it was interesting because now it's not only a big cannabis fest, but mushrooms are just being openly sold. Because it's decriminalized in Ann Arbor now. So, people were just selling mushrooms in booths. He said there were people selling LSD, nitrous gas and balloons. They even had DMT pens. It's like, damn, it sounds like you went to another country, man.
Yeah.
That's Michigan.
Right. Is that, you just call that shit Little Amsterdam or what?
Literally. Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the Third Eye craft fair is a bit that way. I'm not sure. Do we have any of the Michigan crew in there tonight? Usually we got a fair group of Michiganders.
I was gonna say Michiganders, yeah.
And
people in the chat.
well, one of them's quite regularly. He's a licensed caregiver up there. I know he was in there earlier, and I know he's very he's a big proponent of the mushrooms. What do you call it? Adaptogens? Is that what you call the whole realm of
entheogens?
Entheogens. That's it. Thank you. Entheogens. But he's a very big proponent, and I feel like the Third Eye Craft Fair was founded around that. Yeah. As the name might imply.
Yeah, I will say the third eye kind of gives it away.
Yeah, right. But man, that's one that I would definitely love to get up there and check that one out. But I think it's at this point it's almost an every weekend event. So, but it would definitely be cool to get up there and check out Hash Bash.
Yeah, I'm in touch. Hopefully, in the next month, I'll have somebody that led the decriminalize Ann Arbor movement. So we'll be talking about how they made that happen. Because again, I thought there was maybe some sort of psychedelic thing going on in Canada. It sounds like I was maybe wrong on that. Like, well, not so much that I was wrong on it, but there's just the little pop-ups, little gray areas. I think is the most
in
accurate
BC, like therapeutic psilocybin uses, it's coming up. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think it is kind of coming up on the horizons, as well as like ketamine's another one that's starting to get a lot of scrutiny and stuff like that. So things are trending in the right direction, but like BC just did a thing where we basically decriminalized everything. And then we saw drug overdoses go from crazy high to insanely, ridiculously high. And then we're kind of dial it back. And so I'm not sure where everything is actually sitting. I am pretty sure it's still decriminalized, but it's, you know how politicians are. They're stupid.
Yeah, that's a complicated one. Obviously, one we can't solve tonight. But yeah, I always wonder about that. Like, because I know Oregon did a similar thing, and people will say, "Oh, they decriminalized everything," and then all of a sudden these problems started happening. And one of the things that I think that is lacking in when you decriminalize everything is, at least so far, and I don't know about BC, but at least in Oregon, there wasn't a safe supply. So okay, people start buying cocaine or heroin, and they're expecting pure cocaine or pure heroin, and then you have a granule of fentanyl in it, and you die. It's like, well, look, I'm not saying anybody should do cocaine or heroin, but if you want to buy cocaine or heroin, you should know that you're buying cocaine or heroin and not fentanyl.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what sucks, is when somebody does cocaine, they're just trying to have a good night, and then they fucking die. Like, that's so sad.
I've lost a lot of friends that way in the last 10 years or less. And it is absolutely frightening. But it was all the scare it took me to finally stop using the stuff myself. Was just one really good panic attack where I locked myself in the bedroom and paced for about a half hour thinking fentanyl, right? Just because it was probably just really good stuff that got my heart good. And, you know, but that was it. And it's like, man, like, look at yourself. You were absolutely terrified. Okay, fucking you're done. So, but a lot of people don't have that. And like I said, the odds are it was just good stuff. Wasn't actually laced with anything. Just I let my mind do that.
Better to be safe than sorry, though. Like, I think that's really the moral of the story there, right?
Yeah, it was keeping family safe that got me back into and steady indoor growing. You know, I was looking at what my son was spending and where he was picking up weed from before, you know, a legal dispensary was an option. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I would rather, you know, go to jail than fucking lose my kid to something this stupid. Because, right, it's just fucking weed, man. So I'll get back there. We'll get the old fucking thing back fired up, and here we go. You know?
Hell yeah.
And which I'm glad I did, because it was long overdue. The medicine was needed in his household really bad. So yeah,
Both like it makes me happy, but saddens me that we've come to the point where that's how, like, the only way to really get your safe, effective medicine, even in cannabis form, is to grow it yourself or have someone that you can actually trust, because you never know. There's, you know, like, little girl in my community, this was a while ago now, I want to say like 6-7 years ago, in fentanyl laced cannabis. That's a terrifying thought right there. It's
well, and then you say things like that, and then right, that's definitely when people would look at a quality plug or somebody like this, where I would give you some and say, no, I can just get it from the dispensary down the road, because they believe that would definitely at least be much safer option than what I could give them, right? Because I am that unknown, but that shit is tested, and they believe that that is tested, because my state would not allow them to harm.
Right. It's got packaging on it, and it's got a label on it, so it must be safe,
Yeah,
right?
it's got a whole lot of fucking numbers they don't understand on it, but they'll tell you how high it gets you, or try to anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I just a last thought on that specific subject. I don't know if you're familiar with the iron law of prohibition, but it's something that actually Dana Larson, the person I mentioned earlier from Vancouver, Canada, I believe he was the one that taught me about it. And it's the idea that the harder the enforcement, the harder the law enforcement goes, the harder the drugs get. People might be like confused about this, but it's like, it's pretty simple. So like, just economically, if you wanted to ship in a bunch of coca leaves, like coca leaves are super popular in Peru, I believe. I don't know, in Southern America and different places, and Colombia, you know, places like that. Well, they'll just chew on the leaves. It's all good. Kids do it, adults do it. Not a big fucking deal. But it's not very economic to ship a bunch of fucking coca leaf. Like it's, you got to bundle it up and all this stuff. It's easy to ship cocaine powder.
Yeah.
You mash it
Compresses
up,
a
put
lot
it into a
tighter.
fucking tire, put it into whatever. Same thing could be said about opium. People have used opium for a long time, and there's not like a sordid history, from what I understand, of people overdosing on like natural opium. But that's logistically, it's hard to ship a bunch of opium flower and however you prepare opium. But it's easy to ship heroin, powdered heroin, concentrated heroin. And it goes back to, let's just use one more example. When alcohol was illegal, yes, you could find beer, but what were people shipping? What
Moonshine.
were people? Moonshine, yeah, because it's more concentrated,
More bang for the buck.
More bang for the buck. There you go. You get it. That's the iron law of prohibition.
Especially if it's going to be fucking illegal. I'm going to get fucking as high as I can because this one good time might end me 3 years in jail. So,
yeah, so why would I ship a barrel of beer when I could get a bunch of jars of moonshine and spread it amongst multiple communities, and everybody can just kind of dilute it into their drinks? More bang for the buck. And this is the iron law of prohibition. And it's like, if we would just let these natural forms, the natural low-dosed forms, I think, are always the most popular. I would even say that cannabis concentrate became as popular as it is as a result of prohibition. So let me back up for a second. Obviously, like, it became popular in legal states like Colorado and California and everything else because people like to kick it up a notch. But also, it's easier to ship, smells less, all these different things. Like, and here again, we have the iron law of prohibition. So I just wanted to say that, I think if people had the option, they would choose the lower dose, less harmful option, in the case of coca and opium, and you might even say beer compared to moonshine. But when prohibition is a thing, logistics come into the picture. How do we ship as much as we can, and hide it? And that's when you come up with concentrated forms of drugs. So it's it makes sense when you think about it from that economic perspective.
It does, and it's an interesting thought as well. I never thought of it on those lines, but it's one of those, as soon as you hear it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I know we're about at the top of our time. I'm good to rock, but if you guys want to close, it's all good with me. But I'll just plug, once again, my website's colememo.com. Thank you for the space. Generally speaking, I talk about the things we talked about during this show. I've done other little projects here and there. I think I promoted this last time. It's still an ongoing series. colememo.com/sex. I've been interviewing prostitutes, which has been super interesting. We went to a fucking brothel in Nevada. So if you go to colememo.com/sex, you can see me touring a brothel. You can see me talking to prostitutes that have been in the White House, that have been all over the country.
You get to meet Cowboy Cole.
Yes, and you get to see Cowboy Cole. I dressed up as a cowboy for the because I'm ridiculous. Somebody said, "You dirty dog." Yeah.
See, Jay Patrick posted the link to your YouTube channel up in the chat there. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Jay.
No, I started watching the sex worker one. It's awesome. It's actually really awesome work, and you learn a lot. It's a lot more in depth, so it's really neat.
And I should clarify, it's not in depth in terms of, I'm not like, so when you get into the bedroom, do you take his pants off? And like, it's not like that. Like, that is, I mean, look, the sex talk comes up, but that wasn't the point. It was kind of okay. So Nevada is the only state in which this is legal. If you rewind the tape a few years ago, Colorado, California, Michigan, it's the idea that there are industries that become legal in a certain state. And I've always been fascinated. This happened to me when I went to Colorado. I remember crossing the Colorado state line and breathing this like sigh of relief, because it's like, oh, all the cannabis in my car is legal now. And it's just weird how you cross an imaginary line and all of a sudden the rules are different. And so this is just another example of that. So sure, there's talk about sex, of course, because we're talking to sex workers, but mostly it's like, you know, how are you treated as a human? How did you end up here? Why are you staying here? When are you going to get out? How do you like it here? You know,
logistics of what your future is like. You know, those were the cool things when I say in depth. That it was really cool. Like the actual, you know, it went into more than just what's it like being a whore.
Right.
It's nothing like that. There's a lot of actual intelligent talk that goes along with it.
You're a very good speaker and such, so it would probably be a very well versed interview. Be nice to be better than off the street kind of stuff.
So with that, man, I definitely just want to say thank you for all that you do, for just getting a lot of this information out to us here in Illinois, for getting it out there, for looking for it, for fighting for it. You've been at the Capitol. I've seen you with them. Like I said, you've had actual, you know, tangible change in written form, in things changing. So my hat always goes out to you for everything.
I appreciate the kind words, Fluffs, and thank you again, G-Bay, for what you just said. I thank you, and thank you again, Brad, for the space here. And I just really appreciate you all for doing what you do. You know, I haven't tuned in a while, but I do tune in from time to time, and you always have good conversation here. And I think it's important for the community to like just hear, you know, this stuff talked about normally, and the fact that you guys just consume normally. It all leads to normalization, and I guess I just want you to know that I'm thankful for what you all do too, because it all helps. We're all fighting the good fight, and so yeah, just wanted to throw that right back at you. Thank you all for what you do.
Thank you. And for everybody, man, go hit ColeMemo.com. Check out his shit. Throw him some love. Join Instagram. And if you are in a state, get into, look at your laws, man. Your policies.
And I just want to say real quick, for people that are tuned in live right now, smash that fucking like button.
Please. Yes, we're bad YouTubers. We never say those things.
Smash.
We're getting better.
So with that, let's get the fuck up out of here.
Thanks, everyone.
Take this worry away from me. My final bed to lay. I need a silent nothing, and I dug myself a hole. The pain I had buried me. The youth that want me turned me cold. I need asylum in prison. Forgotten and buried. Forgotten and buried. Well, I guess I'll never think about the future. 'Cause I've been wrong before. Well, I guess I'll never think about the future. 'Cause I've been wrong before. Well, I guess I'll never think about the future. I've been wrong before. Yeah, 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 yeah. I've been so wrong. I've been so wrong. I've been so wrong. I've been so wrong. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, this one's for Cole. Cheers, y'all. Dude, look, new box of papers day.
Woo! New box paper day.